Like, comment, subscribe, and let's do this.
But if there is a single thing that the Shield of the Navy does the best, it is to help support and supply the monumental forces of the Imperium, the hammer of the Emperor himself, the uncountable men and women of the
Imperial Guard.
I don't care if these things have adapted to resist our las guns. If we can't kill them with our rifles, then we'll kill them with heavy bolters. And if we can't kill them with heavy weapons, we'll use grenades. And if grenades don't work, then we'll fight them with our swords and our knives and our bare hands. We'll drown them in our blood. That's what it means to be a soldier of the Imperial Guard. Now follow me. Charge! There is no better symbol of the might of the Imperium itself than the Astra Militarum, or as it is commonly known, the Imperial Guard. Though the Space Marines take the glory and stand as the visual representation of the Imperium, their numbers are dramatically thin and specialized in comparison. To reclaim 1,000,000 worlds, you need a countless number of troops willing to fight and die for your cause. The Imperial Guard represents the Imperial truth made manifest. Every year, the worlds of the Imperium pay a tithe in the form of soldiers to fight the good fight of the Emperor. And this number is impossible to pin down. Even saying billions would be a dramatic understatement. The
billions
of
so planets pay a tithe to the Imperium of Man in the form of soldiers, and they're in the billions. That's insane. And I have to say, I don't know if these guys get a choice, but I'm thinking they do not get a choice since it's a tithe. You do not have a choice but to serve. But man, you have to have like a different kind of mindset to be in this faction, to be a part of the Imperial Guard. You gotta be different because you're just a regular guy with a gun. Think about that. You're just a regular guy with just armor on and a gun. That's all you have. And you have to fight things like Tyranids, orcs. I get it if you're in the like Space Marines, because I'm sure they are like they have some kind of power, but being in the Imperial Guard and Warhammer, I don't like imagine myself joining these guys, man. You couldn't pay me enough to join these. I know I say that every video when they are brought up, but it's facts. It's facts. But I'd like to know what you guys like would do. Would you join these guys out of free will because you like them? I'm sure there are a lot of people who like them and would join them willingly. And I'd like to know if they exist. If you are one of them, put that in the comments, please. Because this is insane. These guys are the bravest. To me, they are the bravest out of all the factions. Because all these other factions are like abnormal in some shape or way. This is insanity.
Soldier serves as the fundamental backbone of the Imperium. 99.9% of battles fought by the Imperium are fought by the sundering might of the Imperial Guard. With the knowledge that the Space Marines are essentially sentient tanks, what do the members of the Imperial Guard have? If they're the might of the Emperor himself, are they not suited up in a similar way? No. Not really. No fancy suits, no biological enhancements.
Bro, you see what I mean?
To live. Once a regiment of guard are activated, they are sent directly into battle with almost no expectations that they will survive. This is because, despite their training, their incredibly powerful armor, and extremely strong weapons that would crush any army of the modern day, they are so hopelessly outmatched to the things they will face. Sending a member of the guard is throwing a rock at a nuclear bomb. However, where they lack in advancement, they make up for in sheer numbers.
Hey, I'm sorry for pausing twice already, but that just reminded me of that one meme where they're talking about like child meets hydrogen bomb. That's basically it. That's just basically it. Because what do you mean you're fighting all these forces and you have medieval weaponry. Because at this timeline, the, the, the weapons that these guys are using are ancient weapons. What do you mean, bro?
And their overwhelming force can be the difference maker in any deployment they face. Quantity is a quality all its own. If they do happen to survive, they will be sent to the next battle and so on.
Talk your
Seldom do
talk.
members of the Astra Militarum get old or retire, and those that do are truly to be feared. There's an old saying that the average lifespan of a guardsman is about 15 hours from deployment.
15 hours?
Considering the sheer number of guardsmen out there in any given battle, that number is probably accurate. When several million of your pool of
15
guardsmen die in
hours.
the first few hours of combat because the orcs threw a moon at you, it can really screw the numbers. The soldiers of the Guard are conscripted and trained on an incredible number of worlds in the Imperium, and these worlds can impact their training and their combat style directly. The most famous visually are the Cadian shock troops. But other notable Guard factions include the gas mask-clad Death Corps.
Why is Bricky in his feelings about that? Why is he in his feelings? What happened to the Cadian shock troops? I think he called them. Please put that in the comments. What happened to them?
Of Krieg, the Rambo level of Catachan jungle fighters, and the iron-willed Mordian Iron Guard. This also helps them specialize against individual types of enemies. The Indigan Prefects are a special guard regiment that came from a planet whose planetary governor, the leader of the planet, thought it was fun to collect exotic animals, which then crossbreed and then became the giant freight train-sized monsters destroying the planet. So
What?
the Indigan Prefects are specialized for big monsters. Hello, Tyranids. One particularly interesting officer in the Guard is the enforcement officer known as the Commissar, and they are one of the more visually striking members of a regiment. These are specialized Imperial officers and act as morale officers. But instead of singing songs to the troops and providing hot meals, the Commissars are there to make sure that the members of the regiment continue to fight to the bitter end. If a soldier does not meet the standards of the Commissar, the solution is simple. There are trillions of other soldiers out there. We don't really need you. Combat fatigue? Headshot. Concerns about the conflict? Headshot.
What?
Fleeing the battlefield? You bet that's a headshot. Considering that these
What
officers
the
tend to
hell?
be outside of their regiment, feelings on them can be mixed. And in fairness, certain commissars, like the esteemed Ibram Gaunt or Caiaphas Cain, tend to do a bit better with the whole people talking part. Because if, say, you were trying
Brother, are you telling me these guys, their whole job is to make sure people do not defect? Holy crap! So when you're there, you're not even thinking about defecting because you know, if I defect now and I run away, it's game over. So I'd rather take my chances here on the battlefield and pray that I survive. Who the hell even came up with that post? People had to have been like defecting on a large scale. For them to come up with these commissars, I think you called them, people had to have been doing that. I'm sure about it.
to tell a beefed up Catachan jungle fighter what to do, you might take a mysterious leave of absence inside a carnivorous plant. But no matter what I say, I don't think I can truly convey the sheer might of the Imperial Guard, so I'm gonna get a visual aid. Let's take a look at this image right here, right? This is the cover of the 9th
Is that
edition
an
codex
arc?
for the Astra Militarum, the official cover art. Your eyes may be drawn to the dark and brutal looks of some of the main members on the front and the gigantic orc they are attacking. But zoom out a little bit. There is no floor. There is only people, and behind those people are tanks. And behind those tanks are flying artillery shells. There are 2 enormous transport ships in the sky, and their ramps are down, and on their ramps are more people. The Imperium is described as having a million worlds. A million worlds, and each one of them gives soldiers to the Imperial Guard for the tithe. On a given battlefield,
A million worlds.
foot soldiers number in the millions, tanks in the
Like he did mention that they give tithes in forms of like soldiers at the beginning. But from a million worlds, infinite people glitch, basically. I was going to ask, like, how are they producing more people than they're losing people? So that explains how, from a million worlds, basically, when you get to the stage where like you're of age, son, you better hope that you're not going to serve. But I'm guessing everybody serves though. I'm betting you do not get a choice.
tens of thousands, and you have enough artillery to turn the night sky day. You have walkers and APCs and aircraft and horse cavalry and tanks the size of apartment buildings. You have drop troops and spec ops and rattling snipers and gigantic ogrids that can't count to 4, but they can turn you into 4 pieces, and it just doesn't end. Humanity is a horde, but instead of a horde of bugs or rampaging orcs, it's a living wall of guns. At the end of the day, though he's been ferried through hell on a ship that's 10,000 years old to some godforsaken war-torn rock, though he deployed from high orbit with nothing but a grav chute, though he is one of 10 million men and women snatched from his homeworld to fight a war he barely understands, though he has been given a weapon that fires small suns and may annihilate him as he fires because the knowledge of how it functions has been lost, though his company is supported by tractor tanks that run on anything you can burn, though he wages war against the devouring hive mind, ravenous demons and hordes of hyper-advanced aliens with strange technologies and sorceries he never dreamed existed. No one will remember his sacrifice. There will be no records of his deeds, no glorious parades in his honor, and no remembrance of his name. All he will earn is a shallow, unmarked grave on a forgotten world untold light years from home. Yet for all this thankless sacrifice, a guardsman is a man, just like you. He has no millennia-old genetic engineering, no prophetic leader, no miracles of faith. He has his lasgun, his orders, and those beside him. He is the Imperial Guard, and he will hold the line. In the end, the Astra Militarum...
These guys are raw. You cannot tell me these guys are not the bravest. Just a gun and your orders. This is a thankless job because nobody is going to remember you, bro. Nobody is going to remember you. You do not do it for individual achievements or individual glory. You're doing it for humanity and for the God Emperor. Nobody else. And what do you mean the gun that he fires may annihilate him as he fires it? Do the guns fail? What? Why are they being given faulty guns? What's going on? These guys are a cut above the rest. They may be unpowered, but they're a cut above the rest, bro.
Despite fighting for the honor of the Imperium, are their own form of a massive horde army where individuality does not matter.
Yeah.
They are merely numbers to the Imperium, and the vast majority of the conflicts they are sent to are attrition-based battles that gain virtually no ground while countless millions die. Yet this makes them the most human. For the Imperial Guard contains normal people, people who are happy and sad, people who laugh and love, and in there are stories, because there is strength in facing the horrors of the universe head on with nothing but a rifle in your hands and a prayer on your lips. Armed with an innumerable amount of Imperial soldiers and Space Marines, the Navy begins its great crusade into the stars to rescue the stranded Primarchs and reunite them to their legions. But the biggest question needed to be asked was, What would they find? The age of strife lasted for thousands of years. If a civilization was still alive out there in the galaxy, what would they be like? The technological advancements of humanity prior to and during the Dark Age technology was unfathomable. It allowed them to spread through the galaxy with ease and allowed them to settle once inhospitable planets. These branches of humanity were provided with the vast knowledge of human creations and were given gigantic machines to make arduous labor and ease. The spreading of these massive colony ships was known as the Long March, and these ships would be retrofitted into settlements upon arrival to their new homes. Accompanying them were the gigantic pieces of farm equipment that served multiple purposes and the specialized pilots that could maintain them. They were not only able to tend the fields and do labor, but when interstellar communication was cut off, they also did a great job of protecting the colonists against both threats demonic and alien. Because of the significance of these machines, those that could pilot them were powerful enough to be—
Brother, these things look so cool. These things look so cool. What are these? Like, it's not the first time I'm seeing them. I've seen them from like previous videos, but they look so cool. I cannot believe these were like farm equipment. What the hell?
be considered leaders, and the upkeep and preservation of the machines and the lineage of those who could pilot them was imperative. These machines, over the thousands of years, would eventually be known as the
Imperial Knights. That's what they're
Be
called.
humble of heart, strong of arm, be savage in war, loyal to hearth, and follow deeds of glory. He must keep honor with all, banish cowardice from his doings, and bring his house no shame. He must serve the emperor and defend the imperium, thus should a knight rule himself. The age of strife caused these colonized worlds to be cut off from the imperium, and the reversion of these worlds resulted in the reverence for this farm equipment turned feudal, and the leadership that controlled the devices became viewed as a noble hierarchy. During the age of strife, exploratory fleets from Mars found plenty of these worlds, and it seemed the majority of them reverted to a similar state. Like King Arthur seeing Merlin himself, these feudal worlds welcomed the tech priests of Mars with open arms. The mutual relationship between the Admech and the nobility was beneficial. The Admech were able to secure more worlds for mining resources and potentially long-lost STC information, and the noble houses were
the
provided with technological know-how
STC.
and modifications from the Admech themselves. The suits became more and more specialized, and their history as mere pieces of equipment were lost to time. What was once a tractor became a killdozer, and the Imperial Knights were born. Unlike other military aspects,
Do you guys know the Killdozer lore? But I'm sure if you live in the US, you do know the Killdozer. I somehow know about it. So, elite ball knowledge there. And I wanted to say, like, I've heard him only talk about dreadnoughts once. And I'm so interested in them. Hopefully they're there in part 2 because I want to hear about them. They look something like this. That's why I remember them. I don't know if it's from previous videos, but I do want to learn about them too. Hopefully he does get to them. Hopefully.
in the Imperium, the nobility of the Knight houses remains just that, a nobility-focused feudal hierarchy that swears fealty to either the Mechanicum or to Terra. Like the Knights in our history, once they swear fealty, they can be called to aid their respective allegiance in the heat of battle. The ones that swear fealty to Terra are led by the High Monarch, while the ones with the Mechanicum are led by the Princeps. The ones with Terra might be sent directly to the front line of war, while the ones with the Mechanicum tend to be sent to protect the Forge world. And the heraldry of these houses is what you'd expect from a generic history of knights. Houses pledging allegiances here and there, your run-of-the-mill War of the Roses aesthetic. Except instead of ponies, you have gigantic death machines. These knights can't seem to be piloted by any old person, however. A member of the nobility of any given knight house must go through the ritual of becoming. This ritual involves them sitting on the device used to control the knight, known as the Throne Mechanicum, for a full night. What's wrong with that? I mean, sitting in a chair for a full evening sounds pretty great right about now. So, a pilot cannot drive a knight. They can, but it moves about as effective as Ripley from Aliens 2, big, lifter thing. It is, in a sense, a beast that must be controlled. and a pilot must merge with it. The mind of the noble is connected to the machine and must fight with the mental signatures and personalities of the prior pilots as well. Everything a knight experiences in battle is felt by the pilot themselves. Be it the general movement in the battlefield or damage sustained by the machine itself. If a knight's leg is blown off in battle, the pilot could experience a broken bone in the same spot. The merging to the machine forever changes the mentality of the noble that—
Brother, what do you mean? If the knight's leg is blown off, then the pilot too can feel pain. Well, I guess if your mind is merged with it, that kind of makes sense, but it's a machine, bro. Why are we installing pain receptors in the thing? I don't know how that works, but it does make sense though. It does make sense. And I was going to ask, like, are these guys permanently on those seats, or it's sort of like an evening thing, then you get off? I'm asking because the way it looked like it was permanent. All the contraptions that were on the pilots. What the hell?
that experiences it. This connection reinforces a strong degree of nobility and honor in the pilot, and a desire to fight for the glory of their house until the bitter end, as their ancestors' minds are linked directly to the knight. The size of these knights can vary, but generally speaking, they stand in the ballpark of 30 to 50 feet tall and are protected by a thick adamantium armor. Beyond that, they have their own unique ion shield generators that give them added protection, and when it comes to their looks, the most common pattern across the Imperium is the Questoris pattern, and is honestly the one you're probably thinking about right now. But there are also smaller versions like armigers and bigger ones known as the Dominus. As for a loadout, these guys are essentially a violent Mr. Potato. Battle cannons, Gatling cannons, heavy flamers, thermal cannons, up close
what the hell?
a gigantic chainsword, or a straight up gauntlet. And for that empty spot up top, screw it. More autocannons. Maybe add some missiles.
Rocket launchers.
You can do to make it as over the top as possible, you gotta do it. A squire serves a knight serves a lord serves a baron, and a baron serves a monarch. So who does the monarch serve? He serves every subject, from the rudest serf to the members of the court. Chivalric fealty, when ideally practiced, is not a pyramid, but a circle. Ironically, on the surface, night worlds themselves are one of the least grim-dark settings in the galaxy. Reverting to an ancient time with knights and peasants is almost an escapism from the techno-hell of the modern Imperium. But this, of course, doesn't make it great for everyone. It sounds fun on paper to play a game of knights, but it's not so fun when you're the peasant of that world. For the knights themselves, the knights give their entire lives to the Throne Mechanicum, and their reality is not their own, as they have to hear the voices of thousands of generations of their ancestors controlling their actions and their—
I want to ask, like, for you guys, what are your thoughts on, like, being part of, like, the Imperium of Man? Being part of it, or being a peasant somewhere within the verse? Which life do you think is more of a hell? Being part of these factions, or being a normal, like, citizen of a world somewhere? Which one is worse? I'd like to know what you guys think.
their lives for as long as they live. It's a strange dichotomy. When it comes to Warhammer, most to all jobs tend to be terrible. However, if there was one that could be considered enjoyable, it would be the pilot of a knight, or a princeps of their larger cousins. While it does contain an egregious amount of hardship to be a knight pilot, you do enjoy a wealth of privilege. A knight pilot is often an asshole who can back it up. The rich noble that, despite his braggadocious behavior, is still very much him, and he will continue to be him. But knights are not the only thing that the Imperium found lost in the stars during their Great Crusade. Due to the circumstances of the Age of Strife, humans were changing and adapting to their new homes they were now isolated on. Some of these humans evolved over thousands of years to adapt to these areas, and they were known as abhumans. Many abhumans found their way into the Imperial Guard or other lesser—
Yeah. I'm stopping there, and then I'll be recording the last part of part 1 on a separate video, because I feel like the video is long enough now. And I did want to say, like, I have been thinking this. If you're into fantasy, I'm sure it's very easy to get into Warhammer. And if you're into sci-fi, it's pretty easy too. And I figured why. I'd say Warhammer 40,000 or 40k, however you say it. It's sort of like a sci-fi take on a fantasy thing, or a fantasy script. Because they have orcs, they have elves, they have knights, they have nobility, there's that one guy who rules over all, they have cults. So it's basically a sci-fi take on a fantasy script. That's all it is. And soon as you figure that out, it makes so much sense. I'm surprised they haven't said like we have dwarves yet, or something like that. But it does. I wouldn't be shocked if I'm reacting to part 2 and they like talk about dwarves all of a sudden. That's what Warhammer is. Although the sci-fi is very different. It's a dark take on sci-fi. The tech here is very grungy and it's very dark. It's not like your typical sci-fi that you'd see on other shows. And I like that about it. I'm enjoying this journey, to be honest. I'm enjoying it. And I don't know, man. I hope you guys are enjoying it too. And I will be reacting to the last part, so be on the lookout for that. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the videos. And on that note, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.